Let me call you to order here so that we can stay on our schedule. We got a lot of stuff to happen today. We have more people than we expected, so to be able to do this the way we like, which is to be an interactive event where you guys have a chance to have input along the way, we're going to try to. It's going to feel like we're working hard to stay on schedule, so that's what we'll do. I do want to welcome you to this workshop on church antagonism, developing healthy church cultures. And you will see in your the booklets that you've got in the packet, it's got an introductory description of how we got here. The agenda is in there. There are some examples of some good articles that we wanted you to see. There's a resource list in the very back. And there's a bio of our friend Dr. David Brubaker, who is, as you can tell, an internationally known and respected presenter and researcher in this field. And we are very, very lucky to have him today. I want to say thank you to Concord United Methodist Church. We are in a fabulous space, and we're just the beneficiaries of their kindness and generosity. Anything else? I think that should do it. Let me turn it over to Susan for our opening worship. Well, actually, yes.
Thank you. Let's open with a word of prayer. This prayer is taken from To Bless the Space Between Us by John O'Donohue, and it's after a destructive encounter. Let us pray. Now that you have entered with an open heart into a complex and fragile situation, hoping with patience and respect to tread softly over sore ground, in order that somewhere beneath the raw estrangement, some fresh spring of healing might be coaxed, to release the grace for a new journey beyond repetition and judgment, and have achieved nothing of that, but emerged helpless and with added hurt. Withdraw for a little while into your own tranquility. Loosen from your heart the new fester. Free yourself of the wounded gaze that is not yet able to see you. Recognize your responsibility for the past. Don't allow your sense of yourself to wilt. Draw deep into your own dignity. Temper your expectation to the other's limits, and take your time carefully, learning that there is a time for everything, and for healing too, but that now is not yet that time. Amen.
I want to bring you a reading from Walter Brueggemann, who is my patron saint. And this comes from the Guide to Prayer for Ministers and Other Servants. This urging to bring hope to public expression is based on a conviction about believing folks. It is premised on the capacity to evoke and bring to expression the hope that was within us. It is there within and among us, for we are ordained of God to be a people of hope. It is there by virtue of our being in the image of a promissory God. It is sealed there in the sacrament of baptism. It is dramatized in the Eucharist until He comes. It is the structure of every creed that ends by trusting in God's promises. Hope is the decision to which God invites Israel, a decision against despair, against permanent consignment to chaos, oppression, barrenness, and exile. Hope is the primary prophetic idiom, not because of the general dynamic of history or because of the signs of the times, but because the prophet speaks to a people who willy-nilly, I love that, are God's people. Hope is what this community must do. It is to be God's community, invited to be in God's pilgrimage. And as Israel is invited to grieve God's grief over the ending, so Israel is now invited to hope in God's promises. That very act of hope is the confession that we are not children of the royal consciousness. Of course, prophetic hope easily lends itself to distortion. It can be made so grandiose that it does not touch reality. It can be trivialized so that it does not impact reality. It can be bred in circuses so that it only supports and abets the general despair. But a prophet has another purpose in bringing hope to public expression, and that is to return the community to its single referent, the sovereign faithfulness of God. Amen. Okay. I would like to ask us for a moment to have a sharing time here. As I've watched you all gather here, and we're greeting our friends, we're meeting some new folks, but this is an important group because these are people who are who really have an issue where they want to learn something, where they need to have some hope about things that have happened in their churches or their lives, and I hope that you will that this networking will work well for you during this time. But first of all, I'd like for us just to kind of go around, and I'm going to pick on him to be first, and I just need for you to say three things. I need your name, where you come from, and what's your role. So which church you come from, and what's your role in that church.
I'm Rick Williams from Daisy United Methodist Church, and I'm chair of the Administrative Council.
Perfect.
David Anderson, pastor of Daisy and Sail Creek United Methodist Churches.
Bill Haley, I'm from Daisy United Methodist. I'm the lay leader.
Go Daisy.
Thank you. I'm Jason Ratliff. I'm the pastor at Hilton's Memorial United Methodist in Gate City.
Teresa Atkins McClure, pastor at New Life at Hopewell United Methodist Church. Pastor, yeah.
Sue Lynn Johnson, deacon, serving at Kingston United Methodist Church as minister of congregational care.
Wayne Hedrick, pastor of Holston View United Methodist Church in Weber City, Virginia.
Richard Rudisil, pastor of Tuckaleechee United Methodist Church in beautiful Townsend.
Larry Beeler with Christ United Methodist Church in Halls Crossroads, SPR chairman.
Karen Woods, Christ United Methodist Church, lay speaker.
Jane Hunley, Christ United Methodist Church, lay member to annual conference.
Al Horn, Colonial Heights, SPR.
Megan Boatwright, Christ United Methodist Church, associate pastor.
Barb Knowlton, Christ United Methodist Church, lay speaker.
Randy Martin, superintendent of the Scenic South District.
Dobbin Callahan, council chair of the Holston, Georgia Parish and certified lay minister.
Linda Callahan, also in that parish at Fort Oglethorpe United Methodist, and I'm a SPRC chair.
Riley Dickerson, Georgia Parish. I'm the preacher's wife.
Deborah Dickerson, co-pastor in the Holston, Georgia Parish.
Melissa Spires, administrative assistant of the Scenic South District and local pastor.
Wayne Cook, pastor at Sand Mountain and Wildwood United Methodist Churches.
Richie Hayes, pastor at Glen Alpine United Methodist in Kingsport.
I'm Cookie Spillers. I'm from First Farragut United Methodist Church, and I'm a member of Staff Parish.
Leah Burns, associate pastor, Second United Methodist Church here in Knoxville.
Jim O'Brien, I chair the Staff Parish Relations Committee at First Farragut.
Pat Paulus, Washington Pike United Methodist Church, pastor.
Linda Bass, leave of absence.
Larry Dial, pastor, Beaver Ridge United Methodist in Carnes.
Doug Wilder, pastor at Rutherford Memorial United Methodist Church in Corrington, Tennessee.
Linda Franklin from Grange Chapel United Methodist Church in Dandridge. I'm membership secretary.
I'm Tim Rash, Middlebrook Pike United Methodist Church, and I'm the SPRC chair.
Barbara Hodges with Christ United Methodist in Greenville, SPR, and lay delegate to annual conference.
I'm Tom Ballard, and Don, did you say favorite role? My favorite role is a yeast roll. I'm the superintendent of the Mountain View District.
Judy Keller, pastor, Harrogate, Arthur, and Mountain View.
Brenda Gentry. I am the part-time local pastor at Fort Nurse Chapel in Sweetwater.
Sherry Stair from Christ UMC, and I'm a member of the church council.
Laura Shira, I'm retired clergy and serving as interim director of the Center for Wellbeing.
Harrison Ambrose, Christ United Methodist Church, and I am a lay servant.
Katie Ambrose, Christ United Methodist Church, member of annual conference.
Tom, I don't think this bodes well for you because you and I were thinking alike. So I'm sorry, my friend. Cinnamon rolls here. So anyway, Joe at the United Methodist Church of Norwood.
I'm Wayne Bromberg. I'm the pastor of First United Methodist Church, Bulls Gap, and that funny guy over there is my DS.
Ken Tucker, pastor, Wares Valley United Methodist Church.
Robert Davis, SPRC chairman, First United Methodist Church, Bulls Gap, Tennessee.
Susan Montgomery, chair of Holston Outreach Advocacy Team.
And I'm Dave Brubaker. I live in Harrisonburg, Virginia, and attend Parkview Mennonite there.
And I'm David LeGros from Wares Valley United Methodist Church. I'm the SPR chair.
And I'm Don Ferguson, and I'm the pastor at Christ United Methodist in Halls. And I would say to you that one of the things that I'm the happiest about this morning is the large number of lay people that we have as part of this group. This is, and what it is that we are realizing and understanding the importance of that mix of both of those groups to be able to talk and work together in ways that we haven't done so great in the past. So we are so glad you are here. Brother David.
Thank you, Don. I'm good. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have all of you in the room with so many different leadership roles represented and different parts of this Holston conference. And I heard a lot of people say SPRC, which I assume is Staff Parish Relations Committee, and that's a key role. Many of you are pastors. There's some district superintendents here as well. What I have learned over 30 years of consulting with congregations is as goes the leadership, so goes the church. And that's not just the pastoral leadership or ordained clergy, that's lay and pastors together. So the fact that so many of you are in the room supporting each other is a really good sign. We'll see this afternoon how important it is in terms of dealing with antagonism. So a couple of words of background, and then we're going to put you in table groups for discussion. First of all, I am very grateful to Don and Susan and also to Lori Jo Cranford who helped plan this day. We've been working at this for several months, and you will see that Don and Susan will have roles today. Lori Jo is going to join us next Saturday when we are at Emory and Henry, so she'll be part of that day as well. Secondly, the agenda is posted. It's also in your packet. We're going to spend some time in storytelling and then debriefing those stories that hopefully emerge around your tables. We'll give you some guidance for that in a moment. We're not going to take a morning break because we just have a couple of hours, but lunch will be around 12 o'clock, depending when we wrap up the storytelling. And then we'll get in the afternoon into biblical theological perspective on dealing with differences in the church. And I'll share a bit from the Hauck book on antagonists in the church. But I want to say up front that we frame it a little bit differently. We are going to be talking about antagonism in the church rather than antagonists, because antagonism is a behavior and antagonists are people. And in my experience, if we focus on unhelpful behavior rather than bad people, we're a lot better off. In fact, I have been guilty of antagonistic behavior in the past. My wife could tell you that. My pastor could probably tell you that. And my students could even tell you that. So if we all are aware that we're capable of antagonistic behavior, particularly in high-intensity conflict, and can moderate ourselves, we will find we have much more effective interactions in the church and in our homes. So we'll talk about dynamics of antagonism and also certain behaviors that we need to be alert to and that we should not tolerate in the church. But it's not about who are the bad people and how do we get rid of them. It is about what are the bad behaviors and how do we minimize them so that we can be a healthy church. We'll take a break around 2:45 or 3 o'clock, and then we're going to engage you again in some elicitive discussion. How do we create healthy church cultures, healthy congregational cultures, so that viruses, these bad behavior viruses, are naturally repelled rather than get into our congregations and create havoc? Healthy organisms always resist unhealthy viruses. So the primary goal of this day is to think about how do we create healthy systems in our congregations. If you have questions or concerns along the way and there's content that we're not addressing and you want to hear about, please come to one of the three of us and let us know, because above all, we're flexible and we're willing to adapt as needed. So in terms of storytelling, here's what we would like you to do around your table. We would like you to talk about a situation where you have dealt with antagonistic behaviors. It is most common in high-intensity conflict. So if you know Speed Lisa's work in level 5 conflict, every disagreement starts out fairly manageable, but it can escalate into what he calls a level 3 or contest. It can escalate into level 4, fight-flight, where factions are starting to form. And the worst-case scenario, what he calls an intractable situation, level 5, is when people are truly trying to hurt each other. And there are times, we'll look at this afternoon, where conflict even in the church can escalate to those levels. That's where we typically start to see bad behaviors, unhelpful behaviors. So we'd like you around your table to talk about a time when in your congregation you have seen maybe two individuals, maybe even two groups, behaving poorly with each other. And what were some of the behaviors that you saw? We'd like you to kind of identify for us what were some of the patterns or behaviors that you saw. And secondly, how did you deal with it? And of course, there are several classic ways to deal with it. One is to avoid it, very common. Another is to get right in the middle of it and try to resolve it. And a third is to think about basically joining a side, one side or the other, and becoming part of the fight. So we can flee, we can fight, or we can try to figure out how to resolve it. But what happened in your congregation when you saw this behavior? So it may be that you can think about it and say, I really can't think of a time when there was this level of destructive behavior in my congregation. If so, you're fortunate. My own research found that in a 5-year period, 45% of congregations in the American Southwest had conflict significant enough to call in outside help. So in a 5-year period, about half the congregations had a fairly significant conflict. So it's not unusual for congregations to have this. But I'd like you to think about a time when people were behaving badly, maybe even you yourself, and to share that with those around your table. What was the behavior like? How was it addressed? Keeping in mind two ground rules. First, what's said at your table needs to stay at your table. So we're going to ask all of you to commit to that if you're willing to share openly with each other around your table, please do so, but then it stays there. And secondly, we're going to ask, after you share with each other, for each table to choose one story that you might be willing to share back with us so that we can start to unpack the dynamics. We don't need to know the names of the individuals involved, but what were some of the behaviors and how was it addressed? And then we have the second ground rule, which is what's said in this room needs to stay in this room. So let me just see if you have any questions about this 2 ground rules. You can choose what to share at your table, and it stays at your table. And then your table hopefully can choose one story that you might want to share back with us, and then it stays in the room. Any questions about those 2 ground rules? Okay, I'm going to ask by show of hands how many of you can agree to respect those 2 ground rules? And how many of you have questions or concerns still about those 2 ground rules? Okay, so we'll take those as accepted. And at this point, I'm going to invite you, we're right on time, to take at least half an hour to share with each other around the table some stories of when you saw difficult conflict behavior. What did that behavior look like? How was it addressed? Then choose one story from each table that you'd be willing to share with us, because we can learn from it collectively. Okay, so invite you into those conversations, and the 3 of you can just turn towards each other, I guess.